We have given Jim Harbaugh and this new regime some leniency over the first couple of years as they got this franchise going in the right direction, but now it's year 3, and anything less than Super Bowl contenders is not good enough.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Droegemeier, and we've been covering the Chargers now for 10 seasons, but this is our 8th year as a host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day as part of the #1 sports podcast network. And today, we're doing part 2 of our interview with Jake Hefner from Chargers Unleashed, getting into a lot of the great offseason stuff, including if he has faith that Jim Harbaugh and Joe Hortiz can have this team looking like a Super Bowl contender by the time things kick off at the beginning of the season. But it's more than that, though. It's also about the confidence that he has in Chris O'Leary, the Chargers' new defensive coordinator and play caller, and if we should be getting the conspiracy theory hats on because of how that all went down. And also a big one, if the Chargers should pick up Quentin Johnston's 5th-year option like we talked about on the bonus show yesterday. But here he is, Jake Hefner. Let's switch to more of a kind of a big ticket item here. Jake Hefner, the Jim Harbaugh era, has definitely got the team going in the right direction, right? Back-to-back 11-win seasons. It doesn't feel like it because of how these seasons have ended, but like, me and David have covered this team for 10 years, man. Like, we saw 5-win seasons. We saw 4-win seasons. Like, we were never seeing back-to-back 10-win seasons because that has been so long that we weren't even covering the Chargers the last time it happened before it's happened over the last couple of years. But we are in year 3 now. And from when Jim Harbaugh, we could go back, I could go back and find it. When Jim Harbaugh was hired, I was like, hey, this is an undertaking. You want to build it the right way. You don't want to try to make the shortcuts and go all in. You have to try to build a consistent winner to where your team is contending for Super Bowls every year. And say what you want about the, lack of postseason success, but like, it feels like every year you'd say the Bills have a shot. You say the Chiefs have a shot. You say teams like the Eagles have a shot, right? And teams of that nature. That's all you want to do is just be one of those teams where like you have a shot year in and year out. But what I said is by 2026, it needs to be Super Bowl contention, right? It needs to be you year in and year out contending for a Super Bowl because we know Justin Herbert's obviously good. He hasn't shown up in the playoffs, and that's one of the kind of big things about Mike McDaniel is like hopefully giving him someone that can get him out of those ruts, right? When he does get into those in the playoffs and giving him enough easy stuff to get him into a rhythm, which we haven't seen in either of the last 2 years. But my question is more kind of organizationally, do you have faith that by the time the season starts, we will be talking about the Chargers as legitimate Super Bowl contenders?
I tread lightly with this question because don't we always see this come the preseason?
I was going to say, we're going to say it either way. If it's true, I'm obviously caring more about if it's true or not, but we're going to say
so much of like the big media pundits were like, oh yeah, the Chargers are the favorite to win the AFC West this year. The Chargers.
But we always knew better though. We always knew better than the national media.
What are you doing, you morons? Like that's not the betting favorite. Like, come on, go win yourself some money elsewhere. It's not how this goes.
I mean, it makes me uncomfortable. They're even the favorites for the West in some places right now. But like, it does feel though like, at the same time, man, like if you get Oweh back, if you have a good offensive line, like if you can get the interior of the offensive line and you can keep your edge group together, how far away are you, man? Because I think we can all say last year, if they had Joe Alton, Rashawn Slater, that would have been a team in the AFC, class that was there last year. That would have been a team that could have contended last year with the flaws on that roster if they just had their 2 tackles because they were a completely different team when they had one of their tackles. And just Joe Alt was out there playing left tackle. So I'm obviously going to buy and I'm going to drink the Kool-Aid again, but I don't think it's as far-fetched, man, and I don't think it's as hollow maybe as some of the years past you're talking about.
No, it's not, and I think that Mike McDaniel has a lot to do with that. Obviously, I thought it was a little poetic that the day after the Chiefs had announced the return of Eric Bieniemy, who is a little bit indifferent as far as if you listen to that fan base's reaction to say like, oh God, why are we doing a retrade of this again? Where others are like, oh yes, please. I'll take Bieniemy in a minute over Matt Nagy. So you get some good news from them, and it's like days later where you see, okay, the Chargers are now bringing in Mike McDaniel. And to think that this is going to be the best offensive coordinator that he's had since the Shane Steichen days, but to have a more innovative offensive mind with the weapons that you already have in place. There's so many we don't talk about it enough where it's in off seasons to say like, okay, weapons for Justin Herbert. How many off seasons have we talked about that?
Yeah.
You don't really have that as a big thing on the list this year because
you
you
went all
have
in
your
on it
tight
last
end,
year.
you have your young nucleus of receivers, you've got your running back, you have your running back 1 and 2 already set. It's just the offensive line in the trenches that's really the biggest aspects here that need to be fixed. So if you put the premium in the trenches, which I believe that this front office is going to do, the rest is going to be able to take care of themselves. But Justin Herbert with Mike McDaniel and a lot of his coaching staff remaining, I think it's to your point, Dan, it's not a far-fetched idea. I think this offense is going to be much more exciting when so many times that we said last year that the defense was going to be the ones that have to carry the flag and carry this team to the postseason, which they did.
They did, yeah.
I don't think that we're going to have to say that much next year. That's a great thing.
Speaking of that defense, that's another reason why you have to really, think about if that's possible, right? Because a big part of whether the Chargers are going to be contenders is how successful their new defensive coordinator is going to be. The Chargers had one of the best defenses in the league, but now they have a first-time NFL defensive coordinator calling plays. What is your confidence level that Chris O'Leary will be able to author remotely similar results?
That was kind of the out of left field candidate that came at the 11th hour, wasn't it?
Super weird. Yeah.
But at the same time, when you start looking at it and you peel the layers back, you're like, okay, this makes sense. This makes sense. The players loved Chris O'Leary when he was the safeties coach a couple years back. And when you see what he did when he went to Western Michigan and the development that he had done for that defense in just one season was impressive. I think this was actually a long-term idea for Jim Harbaugh.
That's what I was about to ask you. I was like, do you think this was something he put in motion beforehand because he knew Jesse Minter was going to be a head coach?
Yes.
Conspiracy hat.
But I think this is it's more of just the great thing about the Harbaugh tree that's now been developed with the Chargers. Again, we're not used to this type of coaching history, and especially just ones that are coming out of the team as ones that we're trying to chase and pluck and bring in to be that next new guy. But Chris O'Leary to come up from the Jesse Minter coaching tree, the transition from Jesse Minter to Chris O'Leary should not be one that's going to be big. And to be perfectly honest, with a lot of the other positional coaches that he's brought in, I really like, and the name is escaping me now, which is going to suck, but the Pittsburgh Steelers linebacker coach. Thank you. I think that is a great, great signing to bring him in there with what you potentially already have and what you could build to bring him in there as an assistant head coach. I think you've now introduced a lot of youth and veteran coaching into that defense overall. So in general, I don't think that the Chargers defense is going to take much of a step back at all. I think Chris O'Leary knows exactly what he expects from these players, the players, what they expect from Coach O'Leary to come in there to do as well. And they'll be ready to roll. And I honestly think that this is going to be seamless. I think the players are going to fall in love with them. For the ones that don't know him yet, they're going to know about it. Defense should be rolling.
Yeah, and I think it's so weird because, that was my first thought, like conspiratorial-wise, was just like, that seems a little bit coincidental that he leaves the Chargers, leaves the NFL level to go become a Western Michigan defensive coordinator for a year. Gets the play calling that the guys like
Michigan,
and the guys that you had internally applying for that job, right?
Yes.
But like you interviewed, Steve Quingscale for that job. You interviewed an Adam Fuller for that job. You interviewed Dylan Roney, which was probably the most surprising of those guys, the young guy, for that job. And then all of a sudden, Chris O'Leary comes in, and like I think had they gone, an Anthony Weaver, had they gone to Zach Orr, had they gone just another guy who had done it, had called plays before, had done, that. Well, I'm talking about more just the guys from specifically the Baltimore coaching tree, from the Baltimore coaching tree who had been under Mike McDonald or had been under with Jesse Minter at some point. That would have made sense to go for someone who has no NFL play calling experience and now 1 year of defensive coordinator at the collegiate level experience play calling is kind of crazy, but like it does feel like that's what was in the mix. Like it felt like they're like, hey, we know Jesse Minter's going to leave, right? They knew it. They said it from the moment, after the first season, they thought he might leave, right? And I think when they got him back, it does feel like it kind of started something where it's like, hey, Chris O'Leary, we like you a lot. The one thing you're missing on that resume is defensive coordinator experience and play calling specific experience, because we still have more to get into, including a big question for this offseason, whether or not Quentin Johnston's fifth-year option is going to get picked up by the Chargers. We're getting into that and more with Jake Hefner on today's Locked On Chargers podcast. First, I need to ask you, have you ever thought about going to an NBA Finals game in person? If you've ever wanted to experience that, FanDuel is giving you the chance to turn that dream into a reality with their NBA sweepstakes. Here's how it works. Use your profit boost on any NBA future, and you'll automatically be entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for two. That's right, flights, tickets, the whole experience. If you're already looking at the board and thinking about which team can make a deep run, this is the perfect time to lock it in. I love futures this time of the year, whether it's picking a team to win the championship or grab a conference title. It adds that extra layer of excitement to every game down the stretch. And now, not only can your pick cash, but it could also send you to the finals. And I'm looking at that conference winners, and obviously with James Harden now on the Cleveland team, I don't know if they're going to do it in the playoffs this time. You know, you add him to Cleveland, I think maybe Boston at plus 340 could be the way to go as far as the conference winners go. But if you want to get your NBA future in, visit FanDuel.com to get started. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. We know that the scheme works. Look at Mike McDaniel.
Exactly.
Look at Jesse Minter, right? But Jesse Minter was a special play caller as well, and that is a big part of it. So that is a risk that they're taking, right? That he can do it, and he can call plays at this level and do it effectively and hopefully get close to Jesse Minter. But man, it feels like they believe it so much that I'm starting to believe it, right? And like, it does kind of feel like, and I think that is the other thing to your point, Jake, where it's like, none of those other guys who interviewed for it seem to take it personally. Like, the reason I have a lot of faith in it is because you were able to keep those guys where it does feel like you can keep getting away with signing the Dante Jacksons and the Poona Fords and the Tierra Tarts, because you still have a Mike Elston, you still have a Steve Klinkskill. So I think that is where part of my confidence is coming from, Jake, is just you were able to keep everything intact, and none of those guys got salty and went to pursue other opportunities, which you know they could have.
One last thing on the Chris O'Leary thing. If you go back to the first season is with the Chargers, when he was kind of doing his first press conference as the safeties coach, he said in that he had never spoken to Jim Harbaugh once before getting that position. Obviously, he came over because of the Jesse Minter connection. He knew that. And then you fast forward to the end of that year when Chris O'Leary announces that he's going to be the defensive coordinator for Western Michigan. And you listen to Jim Harbaugh talk about the impact that he made in that single year.
Yeah,
that should give you a clue as far as the verbiage that was used in that.
Paying attention.
They were paying attention, that this was part of a plan to say, okay, if we ever get somebody back for a coaching position at any point, this guy is on the short list for sure.
Yeah, no question about it. And, you know, you also know that there's a connection there with the players, with Derwin James, with Tony Jefferson. Like, the guys love him, and they rave about
Elijah
him.
Molden
and
also.
Elijah Molden, right. He was key in getting Elijah Molden up to speed when the Chargers traded for him and had to get him ready to play, and he was able to, you know, come out and play right away, which, yeah, I'm excited for what Chris O'Leary is going to be able to do. I think he inherited a lot of pieces, and hopefully they keep that edge room intact to help him even more.
Yeah,
but
they need to.
One of the things we talked about a little bit before the show, we talked about Quentin Johnston, and the Chargers have a big decision upcoming about what to do with his fifth-year option. He has definitely improved a lot over his 3 years in the NFL, especially from last year to this year. But at $18 million, are you picking up that option to keep him here through 2027?
See, we can always take the easy route to say, like, okay, what is that we will do? And then we start putting it into the Joe Ortiz brain to say, oh, this isn't like as clear cutter and an easy decision as you might think. You know, you had a similar situation last year with Zion Johnson where you chose not to pick up the fifth-year option. And you start looking at this, though, for Quentin, he has developed very nicely over the last 2 years. And a lot of that has to do with wide receiver coach Sanjay Lal, who has mad love for Quentin Johnston.
Well, it says a lot that they kept him, to your point.
So when you see this start to happen, it's like, okay, now those roots are starting to embed in the coaching staff. You have to give them a lot of credit for what they've done. I think you could even look at certain games this past year when Quentin Johnston did not play. Your wide receiver core kind of looked a little bit different as far as not having a certain option out there. We have to give credit where credit's due in that respect. And then when Quentin Johnston comes back, you're like, okay, look at what opens up when what he's able to do. It may not be as fast as what people were hoping for a former first-round pick in Quentin Johnston, but he's getting there. He's getting there. He's getting there. If it's my gut telling me just with the priorities that you have in the trenches this year, my guess is they don't pick up the option. And it's not for any reason at all for Quentin Johnston's play. I'm excited to see what he's going to do if this ends up being the final year of his contract, if he eventually ends up going into a free agent season in 2027. But still, I think when we've talked about other guys like Adafeowe with Tuli's contract coming up, next year you have Deion Henley's contract that's coming up, other investments that you need to do in free agency. Are you now going to say, is that going to be my second or third priority as far as an internal free agent to take care of now when I've got other bigger issues at the time? And to me, that just the timing just doesn't seem right. So my gut tells me they don't pick up the 5th-year option.
Well, and the thing is the 2027 cap space, I think to your point there, like it's going to look a whole lot different, than it does right now pretty soon here, right? Because the Tuli extension could eat in that. Obviously, he'll still be around, so like they'll be able to massage that part a little bit. But the 2027 cap right now isn't counting what Adafeowe will get if he comes back, right? Or Zion Johnson gets if he comes back. And the other part of it is they didn't pigeonhole themselves into having to keep Quentin Johnston because of the investments they made throughout the rest of the wide receiver core. Because you have 3 younger guys than Quentin Johnston and Keandre Lambert-Smith and Trey Harris and Ladd McConkey, who's going to get paid, right? Like we know that if he can, bounce back and keep the trajectory going up, and I think he's going to have a monster season with Mike McDaniel, you don't have to bring back Quentin Johnston. And I think 18 mil, if he is, if he was to become a free agent right now, it probably would be a little less than that, I would think, right? If you're talking about just what he would make on the open market. So I think that's what makes it so tough is you have to make this decision before seeing how he plays in Mike McDaniel's offense, before seeing the leap that maybe a Keandre Lambert-Smith or a Trey Harris makes. And you just have to do it before you know what he's going to do in 2026, which is what makes it so interesting. But the thing is, too, is like if you don't do it, you still have a chance to resign him. Like, you will still have your chance to bring him back if he ends up going gangbusters in 2025 or 2026. So another big thing, though, is they have another receiver they have to make a decision on. And that is one that's near and dear to all of our hearts here, Jake Hefner. And that is Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen, one of my favorite Chargers of all time. Obviously, a legendary Charger, a retired by the team, number potentially for Keenan Allen because he was so good.
Oh, no question.
But now things have changed, right? Like you have Mike McDaniel now, and you wonder, okay, does Mike McDaniel think that Keenan Allen's a fit for what he wants to do offensively, right? And also just, he was productive, but does that maybe take away a little bit from what Ladd is doing because you bring him back? There's so many parts that go into this. Do you think they bring him back for one more year, or do you think we have seen the last of Keenan Allen in a Chargers jersey?
Joe Ortiz made it a point to talk about how much love he's got for Keenan Allen at the press conference yesterday. So I don't think the door is shut. And then what was it? During Super Bowl week, you heard Keenan Allen just saying, like, I'm either going to play for the Chargers or I'm going to retire.
Yeah, you're right. That's what it seems like.
I'm going to assume that talks have been happening. Whether or not it ends up coming to fruition, time will tell on that. Do I think that he could be a fit for Mike McDaniel's offense? I do. The only thing that I would not want from bringing Keenan Allen back, and trust me, I would not hate it whatsoever, but this should not take away from what you're going to do with Ladd McConkey.
He can't lead the team in targets again. He cannot lead the team in targets again.
Exactly. Yeah. So as long as that doesn't happen, I am all for bringing Keenan Allen back. We know how good of a safety valve he is on third down. We know how much Justin Herbert trusts him.
Literally the best in the NFL.
To me, it's a no-brainer. But in the bigger picture of everything, it has to make sense there.
Yeah, it is. It's tough.
Yeah, no. Obviously the money has to make sense for sure. I mean, it and the thing for Keenan is There's one big record that is eluding him, that is very much on the horizon and attainable. 534 he's able to come back.
Yards. Yeah. 534 yards feels very doable, even in a more limited role. And I think the other thing is just obviously, like, Justin Herbert loves throwing it to him. Like that's the thing. So like there has to kind of be there. But the thing is, though, is like I think the trust was there last year, and I haven't actually rolled this one out yet, so I'd be interested to see what you guys think about it. Like, we still have more to get into here with Jake Hefner before we wrap things up, including the future of Keenan Allen and what the rest of this wide receiver room looks like without him, and more on today's Locked On Chargers podcast. Welcome to the 5-Hour Energy Flavor Draft with 18 different flavors to choose from, including new options like Confetti Craze, Fruity Rainbow, or Cotton Candy. There's something for everyone. The board is set. The flavors are ready, and I've got my number one pick for the 5-Hour Energy Flavor Draft. Confetti Craze. Delicious blend of rich and buttery, freshly baked confetti cake, smooth vanilla frosting, and a sprinkle of sweetness in every sip. Notes of vanilla frosting and the sugary sprinkles, but not too sweet, which I love about it. If it was too sweet, I couldn't make it my number one overall pick, but the cakiness and also the sweetness just blends together so perfectly. It was a hard decision, though, because I had a hard time getting away from one of my all-time favorites and just a classic, and that is the strawberry banana. How do you beat it? It took a lot for Confetti Craze to do it, but that strawberry banana, the sweet strawberry flavor up front, then it comes back around to give you the nice mellowness of the banana. It's a reason it's an all-star flavor combination, but 5-Hour Energy shots can give you that boost, and the great thing is they give you the boost with zero sugar, and there's so many great flavors to choose from. Find your new favorite flavor of 5-Hour Energy shots, available online at 5hourenergy.com or on Amazon. I don't think that Justin Herbert trusted this scheme last year under Greg Roman, and I think the time that you saw it the absolute most was in that playoff game where he did miss a couple of chances down the field because he just wasn't trusting what was in front of him, with the offensive line being part of that. But I wonder if where things are so much more kind of regulated or schemed up and he knows where to go and it's a little bit more black and white, that he won't be kind of staring down Keenan Allen as much this year. I wonder if Mike McDaniel can get him to trust the process a little bit more as opposed to trying to, force it to Keenan Allen in some of these situations, because I do think that could help, because I don't think, whether or not he fits in it or not, Keenan Allen's shouldn't be the number one target for this team. But with Justin Herbert out there, that's where he's going to want to look. So I wonder if Jake maybe trusting the scheme more and trusting where he should go with the ball more will make it maybe less of a factor that he feels like he has to try to force feed Keenan Allen, especially on those big downs.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I think when you look at the difference between Greg Roman's scheme and what Mike McDaniel is going to bring to the table for this wide receiver core, I think you're going to see much more opportunities of a scheme that's actually going to have it built to the wide receiver strengths, built for them getting open, where I don't think that was necessarily the concept for Greg Roman, even though there were occasions, if you look back at the games that Greg Roman called, I think you could maybe count 3 that were like the best games that Greg Roman were called that you wish could have been consistent the entire year. Kansas City in week 1 being one of them. The Dallas game, the Minnesota Vikings
I got to watch that one in person.
All those games were great as it relates to what Greg Roman was doing for his scheme specifically, and it worked. And Justin Herbert trusted it, but it did not stay consistent. Obviously, a lot due to the offensive line, but there were a lot of questionable play calls throughout.
And he didn't make any adjustments, Jake.
Correct.
That's what killed me,
Correct.
man. Like the quick passing game, like it was absolutely completely
non-existent.
It was non-existent, man.
Yes.
And I just don't understand it when you have an offensive line that can't protect the quarterback. It just seems so logical to get the ball out of his hands a lot quicker, and it just didn't happen.
Play action on 4th and 9.
Oh, God. Please don't remind me.
It should have made us all feel better when Mike McDaniel was at the podium and starts talking about the easy buttons for Justin Herbert. Give him those easy buttons when you're talking about a pass rush that's bearing down on you against the worst offensive line in the league, and give him that outlet receiver to nullify a pass rush, to at least keep the defense honest. It did not happen last year. I think that entire scheme is now going to get thrown out of the window. And yes, to your point, Dan, I think that Justin Herbert's going to trust it a hell of a lot better. But you're also going to be seeing opportunities for a lot of guys across the board getting open, not having to battle contested catches so much. And if it comes down to a situation where Justin's not feeling that whether it's a Rondé or Ladd or Trey Harris can get open and that he has to force feed it to Keenan Allen, I don't think you're going to have as many opportunities like that this year. I think he's going to be able to spread the ball around with confidence in 2026.
And if the Chargers do not elect to bring Keenan back, do you still think that they need a wide receiver, or do you think they are good with the guys that they currently still have on the roster?
I think you're still going to have them bring in a wide receiver. It may not be as high of a priority as we have seen them do the last 2 years. You drafted 3 receivers over these last 2 draft classes, Ladd McConkey, Trey Harris, KLS. You obviously bring in some free agent additions, but I think you need a little bit more juice, and specifically more so maybe in the return game, Darius Davis.
Okay. Yeah.
Add a little bit more juice to that.
Competition at very least.
There is a handful of wide receivers in this draft class that are capable of doing that. If we're talking about the speed element that Mike McDaniel loves to bring over, I think you can find that in this draft. So if we're talking about some X factor like that, I don't see them going the free agent route for anybody but Keenan Allen, but I definitely think that you're going to find someone to add in that wide receiver core for sure.
Yeah, and I think, people should, and Chargers fans specifically, should kind of temper their expectations of what, an addition at the wide receiver group would look like. Because I agree, like if it is free agency, I think it is a flyer, right? Like
it's not going to be an Alec Pierce.
Maybe not league minimum, correct?
Nobody like
There's
that.
no Rashid Shaheed. It's not going to be Alec Pierce.
As much as I'd love a Rashid Shaheed.
But it does make me wonder, like if there's one person we've talked about a little bit that's had a lot of success with really fast, small receivers like a Darius Davis, Mike McDaniel brought in about 50 of them. Like if you were under 5'11" and could run in the 4.3s, he was going to bring you into the Miami Dolphins at some point. But
for sure.
Let's get you out on this, Jake. A lot of decisions that are yet to be made. The Chargers still have some obvious cuts even after the Bradley Bozeman retirement, which kind of takes it out of their hands. But my question is this. Between Mekhi Becton, Bud Dupree, and Will Dissly, who do you think has the highest chance to be on the team in 2026?
Will Dissly.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Will Dissly.
I hate the other one, so you're right. Yeah. Like, guys, is it that easy? No, I mean, that is the interesting thing, too. I think the tight end position, obviously, is one where it's like, man, like, do they need a tight end? You have Rondé Gadsden, right? Like, he just had the best rookie tight end season.
But he's the only tight end that's actually currently signed to the roster right
besides
now.
Will Dissly, right? Exactly. To your point. But that, I don't know. I agree. Out of those 3 guys, I mean, I was furious when they extended Bud Dupree, seemingly, like I think the argument for Bud Dupree is, Jake, is like, Bud Dupree's the only edge rusher on the roster right now. Like obviously you have Thule, you have Kyle Kennard, but like, if you lose Odafe Owe and Khalil Mack, now it's like, man, do you have to keep Bud Dupree just as a warm body? Because like, man, it becomes a kind of a red alert moment if you end up losing out on both of those edge rushers, especially with how important we've talked about they are to what, this specific scheme defensively wants to do. But yeah, I mean, at least, that Will Dissly can block, but it also just feels like after he fell out of favor last year, which was super weird, right? When he's just getting benched for, Tucker Fisk and Tyler Conklin last year, that like, man, it feels like the writing's on the wall there, but I agree. Out of those 3 guys, it does feel like he's the most likely to come back.
Yeah, that was a weird situation with him where it was just like, we didn't get any news as to why Will Dissly was not active for those games. That was a good 3 that you chose to put into that question because you have all those elements to say, okay, what's the argument here? And you can make one for any one of them.
Except for Mekhi Becton.
I
agree. But you also have no guards. You have no guards. You have no interior.
Probably just gave you the option D answer and say none of them.
J.K. Scott.
It ended the question, yes.
No, I know. I mean, that it is what it is. I mean, J.K. Scott's the only other one that like could feasibly save you some money, right? But like you'd be kind of penny pinching at that point, even though I think, Brian Ficken loves him. And so if that's the case, like Brian Ficken has to have a pretty good special teams year, I think, this year to kind of get himself out of the funk that unit has been in over the last couple of years. But they like the hang time that J.K. Scott brings to the table. Obviously, it's the only reason to keep him. And again, he's at the top of the league in that regard and in that metric. But yeah, those guys, it feels like there's a good chance all 3 of them are gone, but I think I would lean towards Will Dissly as far as if one of those guys was to surprise, come back to the Chargers in 2026, just because that Mike McDaniel is going to ask his tight ends to block, and that is a big part of what he wants to do offensively, that he could be back, and Rondé Gadsden will have a role, but you're still going to need some complement to him. There's, guys in the draft that could fill that. it's also a pretty strong free agent tight end class as well, which I'm sure we'll get into at some point. But thank you to the better half of the Chargers Unleashed podcast to get away from, taking care of a newborn in the absolute, trenches of fatherhood right now to come make it work for us and give us a couple of shows. We love doing this with you. Maybe we'll try to reconnect and get both of you guys on. I mean, I refuse to have just Dan on the show now because of what happened here tonight. I mean, you have a 3-week-old and you're the one that made it out of the two of you. No, but Jake, thank you so much, man. Obviously, make sure if you're out there, subscribe to the Chargers Unleashed podcast on YouTube, wherever you get your podcast from, because I mean, we have just such a plethora of options in the Chargers content creating space. And I really love and the kind of camaraderie and the synergy that we all have between us, because we're all doing different stuff, especially us, obviously, with the shorter shows and the going every day and going twice a day now. We don't have to get into that part of it, but thank you so much for still willing to come on the show and give us your thoughts on this offseason, because I think we all know it's a really big one, and we really appreciate you coming on.
Of course, man. You know that these crossovers are always fun. Always enjoy coming on with you guys. You guys do such a great job talking about just working around the clock. You guys doing what you're doing with your kids and daily shows and pumping out the content at the rate that you're doing. You guys are machines. So it's always great coming on here and talking a little Chargers powwow with you guys.
Another special thank you to Jake Hefner of Chargers Unleashed. Again, go follow Chargers Unleashed if you haven't already to get what they have going on over there. We appreciate and support them. And hopefully we can get Dan and Jake on maybe later on in the off season, as we're doing two shows a day a lot of these days. So we'll have some content to fill. We'll try to get the quad box of Chargers content creators back. But that's going to wrap things up for this week. Make sure you guys are back here on Monday as we get into the latest Chargers news that's out there. To make sure you don't miss it, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from, as well as finding the show every day on all of our social media at Locked On LAC on Twitter, at Locked On Chargers on Instagram, and our Locked On Chargers Facebook page. We appreciate you guys. We'll be getting some fan stuff in here pretty soon. Buy or sells, Fan Mail Fridays, and all that, and we couldn't do it without the everydayers. If you want a little extra and you want an ad-free version of the audio podcast for the show, you can get that now in the Locked On Everydayer Club for $5 a month, $50 a year. You can get an ad-free audio version of this show and also access to our exclusive Locked On Chargers Discord channel, which we're building right now. But that's going to do it for today's show. Make sure you guys are back here on Monday for the next one. But until then, take it easy and go Balls.